A sample of 23 newborns at the Dallas University Health Center had the following lengths in centimeters. The measurements have been sorted for you from lowest to highest, and what we're asked to find is the 5-number summary of the lengths of the newborns. And they do suggest reading the math notes section, math notes in this section, I suppose is what I should say. I want to come over here and just look at a couple simple or smaller data sets and just describe how I approach finding the 5-number summary. First of all, you do have to have the order sorted from least to greatest, and you can see this is sorted from least to greatest. And I have, if I count these values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's a total of 7 values, which is an odd number. So when I see that I have an odd number of values, what I typically do is note that. I'm just going to write down that there's a center value here. It's at 16. And if you notice, there are 3 values below and above that value of 16. Well, this value 16 is one of the numbers in my 5-number summary, and another number in my 5-number summary is the minimum value. That's probably one of the simplest ones, right? The minimum is the smallest value, and also the max is over here. It's the largest value in your data set. And this value right here is the median. And it's also quartile 3, no, Q2. Now there's one more value, two more values actually, that we need to find, and that's the median of the lower half of our data and the median of our upper half of the data. Since there was just the one value in the middle, I don't use this value as I move forward to find the median of the lower and upper half. I'm just going to use the lower half. So what I'm doing now is I'm considering the 11, 15, and 15 for the lower half, and I'm considering the 18, 19, and 25 in the upper half. Now you can see that the median of that lower half of the data is this number in the middle, 15, and that is Q1. And the number here in the middle of the upper half is the median of the upper half, and that's Q3. So our 5-number summary is the minimum value, Q1, the median value, which is also Q2, quartile 3, and then finally the max value. So minimum is 10, Q1 is the number 15, my median is 16, Q3, the quartile 3 is 19, and the maximum value is 25. And that's pretty much it, right? That is our 5-number summary. From that we can build a box plot, fairly straightforward, and you might want to look at the math notes. This problem doesn't ask us to do that, it just asks us to identify these things. So if you have an odd number of values, here there were 7 values, this is what happens. I want to look at the case though that you have an even number of values, because a little bit different situation arises. If I look at this, the middle of this data set, there is no value, right? I have 4 values above and 4 values below. Now to find Q2, what I do is I take the 2 values that sit together in the middle and I find their average. And normally, you know, I'm just adding them together and dividing by 2. This is incredibly simple because it's the same value, so obviously the average of 12 and 12 is 12. Now what's a little different is because I didn't use actually one of those values to find the median, you know, what's my lower half and my upper half each has 4 values in it now. So the lower half has 4 numbers and the upper half has 4 numbers. So as I move forward to find the interquartile range, or the Q2 and Q3, I'm going to take the average of the 2 middle values in the lower half of my data. 10 plus 8 is 16, and 16 divided by 2 is 9. Oh, I'm sorry, 10 plus 8 is 18, and 18 divided by 2 is 9. So this is the first quartile. This is the 12 is the second quartile, or the median. And then my third quartile is the median of the upper half of my data. When I add 15 and 20, I do get 35. And half of 35 is 17.5. So Q3 is 17.5. The other values I know are the minimum is 3 and the maximum is the number 24. So here with an even set of values, I have my first I start with the minimum. So we have the minimum followed by Q1 followed by the median, also known as Q2, followed by Q3, and then finally we're looking at our max value. So for this data set, I have a minimum value of 3. I have Q1 is at 9. The median, the middle of the data, is at 12. Q3 is at 17.5. And then finally the maximum value is the number 24. So this again is the 5-number summary for my data set. So this problem, let's jump back over to it here. It actually had 23 values. So that means there is one value in the middle. There it is, 50.5. I'm sorry, 50.4. That ends up being my mean, or Q2. Now that leaves, that leaves 11 values below and 11 above. So each one of those has an odd number. It turns out that the middle of the lower half is 48.5. So that's Q1 at 48.5. The middle of the upper half of my data is at Q3, and it's 52.5. And then you can see the max and the min, right? The smallest and the maximal value in the data set. So there is the 5-number summary for the children born at this hospital in Dallas.